Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about making alcohol-free extracts. Now this can be for medicinal purposes or even to use as a flavoring. But what solvent you choose to use is going to depend on you, who you're giving it to, and how you're planning on using it. So for example, if you're wanting a completely alcohol-free flavored extract, then I highly recommend, in that case, going with a glycerin extract. So what you can use this for medicinal extracts as well, but the nice thing about glycerin is, unlike honey that has its own distinct flavor, if you're concerned about that interfering with the flavor of the extract you're trying to create, then glycerin is the way to go. And just like how vodka is often used for making extracts because it has no flavor, glycerin is the same, except for it is very sweet. However, it wouldn't affect a person's blood sugar level because it's not a sugar like honey or cane sugar and so on, or even maple syrup. So that could be a good option for people who are diabetic and are wanting to make medicinal extracts and they can't have alcohol either. When you're using glycerin or raw honey as your solvent, it needs to be mixed with water to make it less viscous so that it will extract better. And in this case, you're going to use 3 parts of your glycerin to 1 part honey. And then you just mix those together well and then pour it over whatever it is that you're extracting. Orange slices for orange extract, vanilla beans for vanilla extract. Then you pour it over that in your jar or your bottle and then let it extract for 6 to 8 weeks. I always go for a very minimum of 2 months with any extract. It doesn't matter what it's for, and it doesn't matter what people say. Some people say it's done in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8. I just let it go for as long as I possibly can. So anyway, for flavoring in particular, or if it's a medicinal extract you're wanting to give to a child under the age of 1, then glycerin and water is going to be the way to go. Now, as far as shelf life, I've read that a glycerin extract is only going to last for 4 months. Well, I highly disagree with that because I think they're just giving you something to work off of, but I've never had an extract go bad, be it one that I've made from glycerin and water or any other type of solvent, even if it sat on a shelf for a couple of years. And also the other thing I want to say about glycerin is you want to make sure you're getting a non-GMO food grade glycerin like I have here. I can give you a link to this, but this has gone up since I stocked up on it years ago, a lot. And I don't know if there's a cheaper place to get it, or if maybe getting it from Essential Depot themselves might be a better deal. But I'll go ahead and link to this below. And I was buying by the gallon because, it's just more cost effective. And that was before I started using honey on a more regular basis for making most of my extracts. Now, the other option, if you're not concerned about the honey, no one's allergic to bees, or, they're not under the age of 1, then again, you can do raw honey to water, or better yet, you can go raw honey and vinegar together. Vinegar itself can make a good extract all by itself without honey in it. However, depending on what it is, especially if you're making a medicinal extract and you're trying to get a child to take it, that's going to be a lot harder to do. But if you're mixing it with something like the glycerin, a 1-to-1 ratio, or the honey, it's going to have a much better flavor. In fact, I did try doing this with just a 1-to-1 ratio of vinegar and honey just to taste it together in a little small amount. And actually, I think it tastes amazing. I love it. It's good just like that. So using this as a combination for an alcohol-free extract, especially for medicinal purposes, I think is probably the best way to go. And this is, by the way, called Oxymel. And it's a type of extract that has its own name and is sometimes referred to as an elixir. Just the 2 by themselves without any herbs added to extract can be medicinal enough. It can really help with gut health and so much more. But then using it as your solvent for whatever herb you're extracting, or root or spice, then that's an excellent choice. But any combination of these 3, if you want to go vinegar and glycerin, vinegar and honey, or the water, or just vinegar alone. Any of these can be doable. Now I did try, just so you know, I did try doing a maple syrup only extract for pain, and just as a small amount, just so I could try it. And while it seemed to extract okay, it clearly didn't extract enough of the constituents that are good for relieving pain, because it didn't have the same effect as my regular pain extract, where I use about 3 parts homemade wine to 1 part honey. And even the one I made with just vinegar worked a lot better than the one I made with just maple syrup. Now, I would think in that case, you could do, instead of, if you're wanting to give it to someone who can't have honey, you could make the oxymel using maple syrup instead of honey, but as long as you're using the vinegar, which again would be a 1-to-1 ratio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a medicinal extract right now. And even though I typically use my own homemade wine, today I'm going to use the vinegar and I'm going to go a 1-to-1 ratio. If I'm using the homemade wine, I actually increase the ratio of 3 parts wine to 1 part honey when I do that. But 1-to-1 is good for that as well. So today I'm going to try making a mullein extract. Mullein is an excellent herb. It's really good for lung health and so much more. I have a video just on this that I'll link to down below, especially for anyone who's having any issues with their lungs. I highly recommend mullein. It's one of the many great herbs for lung health. And I'll also link to the video I did on herbs and more for lung health, where I mention other things such as usnea and so much more. What I want to do, I'm going to make a quart of this, and I'm going to put in pretty close to a cup of the mullein. Now, I rarely measure anything out. I just look at it. But mullein is, when it's like this, is pretty small. It doesn't take up as much space as certain other herbs. So how much you put in there, and also this is dried. If I was putting this in fresh, I'd be bringing it at least up to here. So how much you put in there is going to depend on if it's fresh or dried and how much it condenses in the jar. So I'm going to start with a cup of that. In fact, I'm going to put in just a little bit more. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is this is going to be the easiest way to do it, is to get your honey and measure that out. So I know I'm going to need a minimum of 3 cups of my solvent, probably more. So I'm going to start by mixing up 3 cups. It'll be better to mix it separately because of the thickness of the honey. And this isn't really thick honey. This is why I like using this one from Azure Standard, the orange blossom honey in particular. It's definitely got a runnier texture to it, so it blends a lot easier than some of your thicker honeys. So I'm going to do 1.5 cups of the raw honey to 1.5 cups of the vinegar for my solvent. And that will give me 3 cups. All right, so there's 1.5 cups of the honey. Poured in there a lot faster than I expected, so I had to dump some back into the container. And then I'll just add the vinegar until it equals 3 cups. And now I'm just going to use a big serving fork. I like to use this for stirring things quite a bit. And no, I'm not worried about using my stainless steel serving fork with the raw honey. A lot of people freak out when they see people using any kind of metal with raw honey or with bentonite clay, but what they don't understand is that because stainless steel is non-reactive, it is a safe one to use. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly blended, as long as you've got it mostly blended all the way through, because you're going to want to shake this anyway periodically, and you're going to want to let it sit for a minimum of 6 weeks anyway, so the honey will dissolve in the vinegar. So now I'm just going to pour my solvent over the herbs. And just like I thought, I have room, I can put more liquid in there. So I will go ahead and mix up a little bit more in equal parts and then add that in there. All right, let's top that off. So because this is dried, it's still going to be soaking up that. So you'll end up with less. So what I recommend is if it's like this, you might want to take a chopstick or something that's long that you can stick down in there and stir it up. Or at least just kind of push those herbs down in there. I went a little crazy here, people. Especially when something's this lightweight and it doesn't want to stay at the bottom. There, and now you'll see I have more space. So I can pour the last of that in there. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and stir that a little bit more. Now this lid, even though it's a craft lid, it's been lined with melted beeswax to protect anything from that and also prevent it from rusting. And then even in this case, I went ahead and put a canning lid in there too. So I'm not concerned about it leaking or about it having any reaction to the fact that it's a craft lid and it's not made for food. And then you just shake it up. You see how I'm doing that? You can shake it in several different directions, back and forth and around, side to side. And you can see how liquidy that is. So if I was using just plain honey or glycerin, it would be way too thick and it just would not extract well. And I did try that. I think I said I tried that once with vanilla using just plain glycerin and not watering it down at all. And it hardly extracted any flavor from the vanilla beans. Now I know another question I'm probably going to get is, well, what would be the recommended dosage? Well, it's going to depend on the person and it's going to depend on the age. You know, a child may only need a dropper full of this or a teaspoon, or somebody else might need a tablespoon or two of something like this. And it's also going to depend on the herb as well. At any rate, I do recommend whichever solvent you use, leave it out at least long enough or in a place where you can remember, where you'll see it and you're reminded to shake it. You're going to want to do that at least once a day for, I would say, the first week or so. Then after that, you can put it in storage somewhere and forget about it until it's done, though it's not a bad idea to pull it out and shake it again at least once a week. I'll never remember to do that. So, but I've never had issues. A lot of times I'll make extracts or infused oils and just put them somewhere and forget about them, and they extract just fine. I usually just shake them really good for the first couple of days and then forget about it after that. So anyway, there you go. For those of you who are looking for more ideas on making some alcohol-free extracts, because you simply just can't even have alcohol in your home, somebody in you or somebody else is very, very sensitive to it, or they're a child and you don't want to give them alcohol, then here are several different options that you can go with. And I hope you found that helpful. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions you would like to share, please put those in comments down below. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.